We're reading every Spider-Man ever, and this is Amazing Spider-Man issue 50. Our tale begins in the middle of the action. Spider-Man is fighting off 4 men, dodging bullets and ending the fight definitively with the slam of a door. One woman is grateful that he saved the payroll, but her partner is wary, yelling at Spider-Man to keep his distance. That's just great, Spidey thinks. He's out here helping people and they hate him for it. Back as Peter Parker, and his problems only mount. He finds out that Aunt May is ill and sedated, and that she was calling out for Peter, but he just wasn't there for her. Then, the next day, his college professor keeps him behind to explain that his grades are slipping. If only he was around more and had more time to devote to his studies. And then Gwen Stacy invites him to a little get-together, and he's been wanting that for ages, but his grades are now slipping and his aunt is now ill, and so he'll have to turn her down. Being Spider-Man means that he just doesn't have time for anything else. Not even that job that Harry's dad offered him. And to top it all off, he's wearing the itchiest looking sweater ever made. Can things get any worse? Yes they can. As Peter arrives home, he's confronted on the TV by Jonah Jameson. Jonah is offering a $1,000 reward for his capture. According to Jonah, Spider-Man's an egomaniac and a menace and a fraud, and maybe he's right, Peter thinks. Perhaps only an egomaniac would do any of this. He wanders out into the rain and contemplates, thinks about how being Spider-Man has brought him nothing but unhappiness. Did he really care about stopping crime, or did he just love the thrill of the battle, the taste of triumph? The more he thinks about it, the more he's sure that Jonah must be right, and there's only one thing left to do. He gives up being Spider-Man forever. The next day, in the newsroom of the Daily Bugle, a young boy enters with a bundle of clothes that he found. In Jonah's office, he reveals it to be Spider-Man's old costume, found in an alleyway. Jonah is ecstatic. He did it! Spider-Man has quit. He puts out a headline, and soon everyone knows that Spider-Man's no more. And soon, Jonah is on the TV to talk about it, and every major channel is covering the news. Spider-Man has gone. The news also reaches the underworld, and criminals begin to react. In a skyscraper, a man named the Kingpin can finally put his plan into action and take over every gang in New York City. And so, the gangs begin to converge, and Frederick Foswell, reporter for the Daily Bugle, ex-crime boss and masked mole called Patch, feels it in the air. The gangs are going to start to work together since Spider-Man is out of the picture, and Frederick Foswell knows the perfect person to lead them. Him as the big man. Later, at the Bugle, Jonah is showing Foswell Spider-Man's costume that he now has framed on his wall as a sign of victory when Peter Parker arrives and hands in his notice. He doesn't need this stinking job anymore. If there's no Spider-Man, there's no need for Spider-Man pictures, and Peter has more important things he can be doing. So Peter's spending time with Aunt May and with Mary Jane as a bonus. He's studying, and he's asking Gwen Stacy out on a date. And he just might accept that job that Norman Osborn offered him. And yes, sure, there's a crime spree going on with the new Kingpin running the underworld like a business. And sure, sometimes Peter springs to take action to stop the crime before realizing that he no longer has his costume. But he's happy now. Without Spider-Man, he has time to be a better person, to be around for the people that he loves. And yet, as he leaves Aunt May's and is riding through the city, he hears a shout from the rooftops. Somebody is in trouble and there's no one around to help. Without thinking, Peter leaps off his bike and runs up the wall to help the man, a security guard being accosted by 2 crooks. He punches the villains out cold, and then he turns away from the guard to not reveal his face. But the guard looked familiar. He looked like Peter's Uncle Ben, who was shot by a burglar that Peter had failed to stop. Remembering why he became Spider-Man in the first place, Peter realizes that he could never stop being Spider-Man. He can never let one innocent person come to harm because Spider-Man failed to act. Meanwhile and elsewhere, Foswell has taken up the mantle of the big man once more, and he marches into the Kingpin's office. He explains that he's the only one who has the experience and the savvy to rule the gangs, and that the Kingpin can be one of his lieutenants. But then when he pulls out a gun to threaten the Kingpin shoots a disintegrating laser from his cane, and then his men take Foswell hostage. Across the city, Jonah Jameson walks into his office to find familiar red feet resting on his desk. It's Spider-Man, wearing the costume that Jonah had on his wall. Spidey tells Jonah that he'd never quit, that he was just out recruiting many more spider people just to annoy Jonah. And he just can't wait to read the retractions that Jonah will be forced to print. Jokes made, Spidey swings out of the window and into the city, a hero once more. Thanks for watching. There's a new issue released every Thursday, so subscribe to make sure you catch the next one. And while we wait, here's a fun fact about this one. Sam Raimi's Spider-Man 2 took a lot of core elements from this comic, including the iconic image of Spider-Man quitting in the alleyway and Jonah hanging the costume on his office wall.